I wanted to talk about the facade, specifically mask theory. Mask theory is a Bobby theory, which I guess is technically real psychology, the facade theory. This is why you shouldn't DIY psychology, because what I call mask theory is probably recognized in psychology as the development of the facade. My mask theory is actually pretty simple. Uh, when I was a real little kid, you heard me talk about this before. I put on a night mask and I thought I was invincible. And I had a plastic sword and I ran at my big brother and he roundhouse kicked the blade off of my sword and then roundhouse kicked me in the head and I went down. Nothing about wearing that mask made me invincible. And I believe this is why I'm a genuine person. Everything I do, I just wear on my sleeves. And it's funny as shit because every malignant narcissist you run into, everything they do is projection. And then they have to prove themselves right. So your psychology isn't the psychology you have. It is their failure to recognize the psychology you have because everything they do is projection. They have a backstock of potentially every mental illness known to man in their head. And that is how they know exactly how to manipulate people. All except for one. Every mental illness except for one. Being genuine. Being real. Being authentic. You see, when I spoke to my cuddle buddy, she talked about that there's two versions of her. And the version I see is the real version, but then there's this twisted, fucked up version. No, that twisted, fucked up version. That version is the real you. And it's twisted and fucked up because it's the glorious chaos that Friedrich Nietzsche so covenantly loved. It's suffering. And the real you is suffering behind a mask. And the mask is beautiful. It is like having a grill over rotten teeth. Or a hideous rotting body covered with some kind of weird plastic. You're miserable. But this isn't that, because what I wanted to touch on was the development in Bobby's mask theory. Now, I first developed mask theory when talking to a furry on DA, and they talked about their fursona or furry persona, and how they're a completely different person. But what it appeared to me as is what Carl Jung would call the shadow self. Their fursona was everything they weren't. They had a weird foot fetish. This person probably had a weird foot fetish and couldn't fucking reconcile that. A lot of times I find furries have overbearing religious parents, Christian or Catholic, and they fear that nobody would ever accept them if they found out they were furries. I have learned in life to, when people come out as furries, to just shrug. But, I mean, I've learned in life when people come out as gay, and I know they're gay, like, long before they come out, to just shrug. Like, so many people are like, oh, I'm gay, it's gonna change everything. Bro, you're gay. Okay. When I was dealing with Blondie, Stu, Cannon, I kept getting accused of things that simply weren't real. They weren't true. And I knew they weren't true because I have always just been me. And the sad truth is, I remember Annalene and Mummy God was like, well, you gotta be insanely crazy or brave to just be you all the time without worrying what other people think. And or, I got a better idea. Every time I was supposed to develop a facade, I simply did it because of external events. My brother kicking the sword out of my hand and then kicking me in the head. Definitively proven to me nothing about wearing a mask changes my physical limitations or who I am. My cuddle buddy absolutely loved the game Majora's Mask. Because Majora's Mask, the Skull Kid puts on Majora's Mask and suddenly he has power. Suddenly he's somebody else. He's somebody better. He's somebody smarter. He's somebody more skilled. And I think we all kind of wish, to some extent, we could do that. Just become somebody better. We just feel inadequate in our lives or disproportionate to everything. Hell, my entire life, maybe people say my entire life, and it's kind of a black and white thinking thing, but I struggle to find events in my life where I completed a task legitimately and somebody just let me have it. And this isn't a joke. When I was in the special ed room, teachers would move the goalposts. Uh, when I was in regular education, teachers would move the goalposts. They'd be like, he thinks he's so smart! And they just wouldn't let me have it. And other kids, they let have it. And one of the most self-righteous things I ever got from any teacher in that regard was a teacher that explained to me he makes it harder on me because he needs to see me try harder. And I think, once again, this feeds back into the ADHD shit and the you're not trying hard enough, even though I completed the task within the limitations and followed the rules, and then you're just not going to give me my reward. When these people stole everything from me, when they forced me to sign the perjury through poisoning me with heavy metals, I mentioned to Annalene, Mummy God, yeah, that makes sense. And he's, what? And I told him what had happened my entire life, and I was like, it's almost as if they're bastards with power that seemingly can't deal with the reality that they're losers, and something about meeting me makes them realize they're fucking losers. And he kind of froze. And my theory of what I actually meant then, because I didn't understand why everybody is so unnaturally cruel to me, is people don't like genuine things. They don't like real people. Because when you meet a real person who just isn't fazed by any of your bullshit. Gannon did this thing where he was sending me super morbidly obese women on Facebook, and I kept just shrugging it off and laughing and thinking it was funny. Stu literally lying to people and then being like, I've never seen Bobby do those things, so I think you're full of shit. I mean, that is right up until the wives of this church, when they made me president, forced me to do all the bad things, which is just genuinely something that's not me. So now I have no real defense against these people. They have a literal video of me committing every atrocity you could ever commit. Not through my own will or anything of that nature, but they don't care because it's about hurting you as much as they can. And I would argue my genuinosity is exactly what makes Blondie insecure and why he has to know he's better than me. And he has to know he's better than me by cheating. And when I say cheating, I remember Annalene and Mummy God alluded to, because everything these people say is sideways, that Blondie could have never beat me if I was fully mentally healthy and in my right mind. He said 100% you would do the right thing if you didn't have those heavy metals in your head. But you need to understand, our guy needs this crutch to win. And he explained that every narcissist in their church, for that matter, has to win. They have to cheat. And they can't lose, because when they lose, it destroys something in them. What he means to say is their fragile ego and their facade. That is completely fake. And the issue, when you reveal a narcissist, because my cuddle buddy did this, she believed her facade is the real her, and this is something, one of the church's many, many, many reprogramming programs. You're not the mental trauma we gave you. You're your facade. You're that fake thing that goes around being fake all the time. And then when you meet people like Bobby who can point out how disingenuous you are, you panic because he sees you. And the fakeness works on everybody else because we poison them with tetralead and they're too stupid to see that we're neurotic and weird. Oh boy. Or it works great on television or camera where people are being fake. I believe it is the natural state to develop a facade. But I believe it is a natural state of maturing when you recognize you don't need the facade anymore. The same way I believe the amygdala is training wheels for fear, and eventually it does just fade away, because I've seen old people do incredibly dangerous and stupid things. Old people tend to stop caring what other people think, and I think that is the death of the facade. I remember talking to an old dude at a gas station that was like, as soon as I started shitting and pissing myself, I realized I needed to stop caring what other people think. And he said the indignity of having your ass wiped by a cute 20-year-old nurse with 2 kids is the kind of humiliation, was the exact humiliation he needed to get rid of his facade. The problem is it came when he was 72, which I guess maybe for most, maybe, I say it happens for everybody, maybe it doesn't happen for everybody, because the truth is we all walk different paths. But I spoke in depth about this subject with a girl that does clown makeup, explaining that I believe that clown makeup was a form of a mask. And that there's a lot of clown makeup theory that goes into clown makeup. Like, you can read clown makeup and tell what a person truly feels to some extent, or what representation. And we started talking about that, and she got really scared, and she stopped talking to me, because it's kind of a creepy subject when you start. It's a vulnerable subject. It implies that there are things you're doing that you don't know why you do them. You know you like them, but there's a deeper reason as to why you like them. I like watching restoration videos. A lot of people will be like, oh, restoration videos. I like watching restoration videos because it involves helping something that's broken. It involves fixing. There are things in my life I can't fix, so I enjoy seeing things get fixed. Things that need help. Now, my cuddle buddy in Majora's Mask. I do not like my cuddle buddy at all. She's a disgusting person because she's a member of this church, and she willingly fought to be a member of this church. She wanted it so bad, and just like in my goddess art, it is something that destroyed that person. And if you're a member of this church, I don't give a fuck. You're a destroyed person. And they make you proud of that destruction, by the way. So, let's talk about, in Majora's Mask, the different masks you put on. I remember pointing out that you get these really cool, unique abilities. You put on the Goron mask, you can roll around with spikes. You can swim good as Zora Link. And I remember going on a rant. I ate a whole bunch of candy, and I drank a lot of coffee. And that's not like an excuse for anything. But I went on a rant talking about how this is going to be a little racist, but it was like I probably knew about 10 or 15 black kids growing up that would probably have loved having the Zora mask. Okay. And I was secretly going around talking to people and asking them what their favorite transformation was in Zelda. And the reason for that, and honestly, I asked a bunch of black kids, but I also asked a couple white kids that couldn't swim, and they all liked the Zora mask, but then they wouldn't tell me why they liked the Zora mask. To which I just assume it's because he can swim good. But I also had people tell me they liked the Zora mask because he does karate, which is pretty cool too, honestly. And then I asked them if they could do karate, and they said no. You see, with the masks, the mask people put on, I believe, is the shadow. And I believe it's a way of integrating the shadow without actually integrating the shadow into the self. It is the way of integrating the shadow without actually... It's a way of using the shadow without actually integrating it, without destroying what a person perceives to be them. When what you are is a way more complex amalgamation, and you are who you are to the day you die. That is just stone hard facts, regardless of how damaged you get. So, I spoke to people that like the Goron mask and found out, like, very uniquely, a lot of people really don't like the Goron mask. That outside of the increased travel time, a lot of people just thought how funny the Goron was. He punches, he kicks, and then he smacks him with his ass, which is, they call it the clapper in the game, when you smack him with your butt, as the Goron. And I realized a lot of these people even studied comedy, they studied jokes, but they themselves weren't really funny, and that's something that's in their shadow. That's something they need to integrate, and I would argue that that's part of that, or The Deku shrub. I met people, weirdly super confident people, who absolutely love the Deku shrub. Yeah, the little the weak one that the character you start off as. They actually thought the Deku shrub was amazing, and I found that fascinating. But I would argue that vulnerability, that weakness that the Deku shrub mask represents, is something that's stored in their shadow. They're afraid to be vulnerable, so when they see Deku Link walking around being genuinely a Deku because he can't be anything else. Deku meaning useless person, Deku stick meaning useless stick, or Deku nut meaning useless nut. But that's the thing about Deku in Japanese. It can either mean useless or useful, depending on the connotation. So, the stick is useless until you club somebody in the head with it, and then it's not useless. I used to call it potential. That's what I used to call it, potential. But I think that's the thing, is we're all Deku. We're all just potential. Whether we know it or not. Mass theory is a really deep thing with me, because I myself never got a facade. And there's an anime called Tajima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider. It's about a 40-year-old dude that puts on a Halloween mask that's a Kamen mask. And he moves through the wavelength of the Kamen Rider, and he actually believes, 100% delusionally, that he's something better. That he's something greater than himself, and it enables him to do amazing things. And that is the removal of... It's weird he's delusional, because it also removes delusion in his own mind. And this is the psychological inverted mirror effect. Which... I never thought about it like that. You see, this is the importance of talking to other people. I might have to do some things about that. Yeah. And even the lesser masks in Majora's Masks, and all their abilities, the Up All Night mask, like, who hasn't? When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was stay up all night. And now I do as an adult. I just stay up all night. Because I love the darkness, by the way. I'm a night owl. The Up All Night mask, even though it's a torture device, like, yeah, trying to make yourself stay up all night, even when you're a kid, and all day, becomes a form of torture, because you're like, I stayed up all night, and then your parents want you to stay up all day. You just end up torturing yourself, so that, yeah, staying up all night's torture. The bomb mask, and we could go over every mask in Majora's Mask. One of the, I remember getting into a conversation with a kid in school explaining that I believed every mask in Majora's Mask is secretly an identification or personality disorder. And some of them are coping mechanisms for trauma. Other ones are coping mechanisms for depression. And I was like, and they're all coping mechanisms. To which the guy said, yeah, well, what's the fairy mask? I said, that's charisma. I was like, it attracts other people. It attracts other things. It attracts like-minded individuals. And I remember this awkward stare, and the guy, are you a Majora's Mask fan? Honestly, when I first played it, I really wasn't. I didn't like the game at all. I couldn't explain it. I remember thinking Deity Link was cool. And he was the coolest thing I had ever seen in any Nintendo book. But I couldn't tell you why I thought he was cool. But now that I come to the realization of it, like, the reason I didn't like Majora's Mask is because putting a mask on just looks stupid to me. Pretending to have a facade looks stupid to me, because I've always just been me. And even when I acted like Ed in school, and people were probably going, oh, that was the closest thing to a facade I had, but it was an amalgamation, because I witnessed how fake everybody else around me was, how everybody was wearing a mask and everybody had a facade. So I talked like Ed to make fun of them, because I can do that too, you see. I'm just like you. Butter toast, gravy, bananas, oh, flossing oranges, and they cover up their alcohol. No need to have clams, am I right? Yeah. And, I used to do that all the time, and I remember these Christian dudes would get really pissed at me, and I didn't understand why they were so mad. And I think it's because our subconscious may have been connected, and what they were seeing was I was making fun of them for having a facade to begin with.